Hi, this is Daniel Levine. Before we begin this week's podcast, I wanted to take a moment to thank our listeners for tuning in each week and wish you all a happy and healthy new year. I also wanted to remind you that in partnership with Global Genes, we'll be launching Rarecast, our new podcast focused on the world of rare disease. Like the Bio Report, Rarecast will be available on SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher, and through other major podcast managers, as well as Global Genes raredaily.org. Rarecast will be launching the week of January 4th, so be sure to keep an eye out for it. And thanks for listening. I'm Daniel Levine, and this is the Bio Report. As the biotech industry ramps up for the JPMorgan Healthcare Conference, we continue our conversation with TheStreet.com's Adam Feuerstein. In part 2 of our conversation, we look ahead to what's in store for the biotech industry in 2015. We get Feuerstein's thoughts on who and what to watch in the new year, what big pharma company may be the target of a takeover, and whether fights over drug pricing will put an end to biotech's bull market.
Adam, thanks for joining us.
Oh, it's good to be here, Danny.
And thank you for coming back after a long week.
Yes, definitely.
So we're kicking off the new year. People are preparing to gather in San Francisco for the annual JPMorgan Healthcare Conference in San Francisco, the largest and most important financial conference for the industry. We've talked about this in the past and all the activity that goes on around and outside of the conference. This year, there's a big difference, a notable absence, I hear. I understand you won't be attending. Why is that?
Yeah, I don't know if anyone's going to care about this, but yes, I decided not to attend the JP Morgan conference this year. And really, it was because, I've attended, I think, every year since 2001. And the last few years, I kind of felt like, do I need to be here? Is it possible to cover this conference remotely? And really the only way to answer that question is by not being there. So that's kind of the grand experiment, is to see, can I use the technology that's out there today, Twitter and webcasts and all these different things, and can I cover the conference, from my home base and not be in San Francisco for it. And I don't know the answer to the question. So it may be that, I find out that I made a huge mistake and that I need to be there. And if that's the case, then I will be booking my hotel for JP Morgan 2016, a year in advance. But we're going to see. So that's the plan. So we'll see how it goes.
We will miss you.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. Thank
you. The industry raised record amounts of cash in 2014. There were more than 100 IPOs, and an astounding number by any measure. Venture investors are awash in cash. This is quite a change from recent years. How do you think that changes the focus and the conversations this year at and around JP Morgan?
Well, I think it's kind of a continuation of, even 2013, 2014. I mean, we're in the midst of this, financing boom, and the overall, even with the recent volatility, it's still it's been an amazing performance. So I think you still see those kind of things. Lots of at JP Morgan, there's always lots of partnering discussions and deal making sessions, and you later find out inevitably that companies got together during that week at JP Morgan, it just sort of sets the tone for the year. So I don't think that's going to change. I think that's just going to continue. The whole, really the sector just sort of revolves around that meeting, for a week.
So in the past 2 years, we've had close to 150 newly minted companies on U.S. exchanges. I know you don't follow IPOs closely, but are we in for a shakeout?
So many, God, it's like hard to get.
Well, it is remarkable. But how many of these companies are going to do what they need to do with the money they've raised and be able to raise additional cash when they need it? How much of an appetite will there be among investors?
Well, I mean, if you look back, I mean, it seems like the appetite has been rather, it's kind of been insatiable. I mean, look, there are certain things. I mean, there are companies that, I think at the end of the day, you look at companies on an individual basis, right? And so it's not like, because biotech is so hot, I'm gonna be willing to invest in every IPO. No, I think that there have been times over the last couple of years where you just sort of, people were getting into IPOs just because it seemed like, you could invest in an IPO and the stock would go up, and where people were chasing performance. So, whether I don't know if that situation that we're in right now is sort of we enter 2015, but look, big companies, with exciting technologies are going to attract a lot of attention. I mean, maybe the best example is, the Juno IPO, which just happened. We just went through hugely oversubscribed, right? Huge investor demand. The whole CAR T, cancer immunotherapy field is red hot. So that was an IPO.
About a 45% pop on the first day.
Big pop. It's got a $3 billion plus market valuation. And then Bellicum came out at the same time, another sort of CAR T therapy. You've got Kite, who's already been out. So in those situations, you look at the companies, like really exciting technology, you're going to have people, falling all over each other to get a piece of that.
Last week we spoke about the recent move by Express Scripts to cut a deal with AbbVie over its recently approved hepatitis C drug.
Right.
How big a fight does the industry have over pricing in 2015, and what kind of a threat is this going to be to the bull market for biotech stocks?
Yeah, I mean, part of me feels like, maybe I made a mistake not going to JPMorgan this year, because I think that in every session, at every presentation, in every breakout room, in every one-on-one meeting that companies have with investors at JPMorgan this year, drug pricing and the sustainability of drug pricing is going to be the big topic of conversation. I think you're going to hear it. You're going to hear it from the drug companies who are going to be talking about. They're going to be defending the pricing of drugs. They're going to be talking about innovation and sort of R&D efficiencies. And then for the payers, the health plans that are presenting there, they're going to be talking about the other side, about how we have budgetary constraints and about how pricing can't just continue to rise all year. It's a very interesting sort of debate, and I think it'll probably be, again, it'll be the biggest topic of conversation at the meeting this year. It's an issue that I think as we talked about the last time you and I talked, it's something that has been an area of concern for a long time, but now it's here, and I think it's and the industry has to address it.
Unicure announced its pricing for its gene therapy. Pfizer entered into agreement with Spark Therapeutics. Bluebird reported strong results. Is 2015 going to be a breakout year for gene therapy?
Well, it's definitely one of the things that I'm really focused on. We sort of ended 2014. Bluebird had some pretty amazing results with their beta thalassemia gene therapy. They were at the American Society of Hematology meeting, and the results were early but pretty spectacular. And like you said, you've got so you got the Pfizer deal and Glybera. What's amazing there is what you're talking about here. The potential is a single treatment that cures a disease. And we don't talk about that. We rarely talk about cure, right? I mean, we don't really talk about it under rare circumstances do we talk about curing disease. And in here, you're talking about the potential for a single treatment to do that. That's amazing. And so the whole, the issue that you sort of think, if you look ahead, you think about, well, how do you price something like that, right? I mean, what do you charge for a single treatment that cures a disease? And I've had conversations with Bluebird CEO Nick Leschly about this. He kind of backs away and doesn't really, and I understand why, he doesn't really want to talk about what he may charge, given the fact that they're still in the early stages of development. But that as we sort of move along and we get more data from these companies, that's going to be a really interesting debate and discussion that could happen this year.
How about the immunotherapies that have generated so much excitement in the oncology space? How big a year will 2015 be for immunotherapies?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be another big year, right? You look at the CAR T therapies. You got Juno and Kite and Bellicum and Novartis. Those companies are just continuing to run their studies. We'll get more results from those studies. They're sort of moving into multi-center studies, so we're going to see how those kind of the stunning results we've seen so far are replicated when we run larger studies, and importantly, as we follow these patients for longer periods of time. I mean, we've seen amazing remissions in some of these blood cancers, in a lot of the kids that have been getting these CAR T therapies. But, over time, we want to see how durable those remissions are and what happens. And so 2015 is going to be a really amazing year, interesting year to follow that. And then on the sort of the PD-1 checkpoint inhibitor stuff, we're going to see expanded, looking into, we've obviously seen them in melanoma and stuff, but, this is a big year for lung cancer. We're going to get some pretty definitive data from the checkpoint inhibitors in lung cancer to see how these therapies can work in that cancer. It's a much bigger commercial market opportunity than melanoma. So I think that's a big thing in 2015.
Pfizer failed in its attempts to buy AstraZeneca in 2014. Any blockbuster acquisitions on the horizon in 2015? Any big pharmas likely to be bought?
Well, so I'll break some news here. Okay, so I do put out a list of predictions for 2000, every year, biotech stock predictions. And so one of my predictions for 2015 is that Gilead is going to buy Bristol Myers Squibb. That is one of my. Now I don't know if it's going to come true. And usually my M&A acquisitions, I have a horrible track record when it comes to my M&A predictions. But the way I think about that is, I think we always sort of talk about Big Pharma buying biotech. I kind of look at it. If you look at the market caps, Gilead's a much bigger company now, and so I wonder if they want to get into cancer in a big way and get into cancer immunotherapy in a big way. Maybe they'll buy Bristol Myers.
I think it's a compelling thought.
You don't believe it for a second, Dave?
No. I think it's a compelling thought. I think you're right, though, that a company like Gilead it's a much more compelling buyer today than. Yeah.
The company like Gilead, I mean, Gilead, all troubles aside, recently with the whole Express Scripts stuff, they are generating huge amounts of cash, and what's amazing always, what I've loved about Gilead is that Gilead is not afraid to sort of transform themselves. I mean, when they bought Pharmasset, that was a transformative deal, right? That got them into hepatitis C, and you see where it's taken them. I feel like they're going to do something. That's kind of a lot of people speculate in 2015 is sort of what is the next move for Gilead, and I think they've already kind of moved pretty aggressively into cancer, into oncology. They just hired somebody to run their oncology division practice. And I think that you might see them do something pretty big, even bigger in oncology. So that's kind of where the Bristol Myers thing for me sort of came up, because that would certainly raise a lot of eyebrows.
Oh, let's talk about what to watch in 2015. Who's facing big tests in the year ahead? Give me a company, a CEO, a product to watch in 2015. Let's start with the company.
Well, we talked about it before. I mean, again, sort of high up on my list would be Bluebird. Again, sort of the gene therapy, just because it's so transformative. They've kind of shown proof of concept in beta thalassemia. They are running studies in sickle cell disease now. They're starting to enroll patients in a sickle cell trial using their gene therapy, and that's a really big market, and there are just really no good effective therapies in sickle cell. So if they can show that the gene therapy is effective in sickle cell, that is huge. So I think that to me is one of the really most interesting things to watch in 2015.
How about a CEO?
A CEO, maybe John Martin, Gilead, given sort of the things that are happening now with drug pricing and kind of expectations that, they're going to, what they're going to do next. he made a bold move before, and I think it'll be interesting to watch what they do. And on Big Pharma, you have probably Pfizer, right? I mean, like you mentioned, they failed in their efforts, in their M&A efforts last year, and sort of maybe to see if they try to do something again this year. So that might on the pharma side, that might be really interesting.
And how about a product to watch? Is there something late stage in the clinic that's going to be facing an approval?
Let's see. Yeah, I mean, I think I'd probably, and again, I'm sorry to be repetitive, but I think these are the things that are really biggest. Probably the PD-1s. I think those will be interesting to watch, just because again, we sort of want to see them expanding into some of the bigger cancer markets. Lung cancer. Products that are sort of coming out. Maybe I think what be interesting to watch is the PCSK9s. The cholesterol lowering drugs that Amgen and Regeneron have. They're under review with the FDA right now, so they should probably. I think they'll probably be approved this year. So to see how those do, injectable drugs, how they do in a potentially big cholesterol market. But I think also what's interesting there is that market is also sort of potentially at risk for the kind of express script drug lowering cost kind of thing that we saw with Hep C. So that might be when those drugs launch. They're kind of interchangeable, and so to see how the PBMs and the health plans take on those drugs will be interesting to watch.
So, is there a big theme for 2015? Pricing.
Drug pricing, right? I mean, I think we're talking. You and I are speaking now when that's like and at the forefront. It's like sitting in front of our face. So it's easy to say that, and you never know what's going to come up later on in the year. But as I sit here right now, I mean that's the big topic of conversation.
Adam Feuerstein, senior columnist for TheStreet.com. Adam, thanks as always.
All right, thanks, Danny.
Thanks for listening. The Bio Report is a production of the Levine Media Group. To automatically download this podcast each week, subscribe to our RSS feed or through iTunes or other podcast manager. To join our mailing list, go to levinemediagroup.com. We'd love to hear from you. If you want to drop us a line or are interested in sponsoring this podcast, send email to danny@levinemediagroup.com. Special thanks to Jonah Levine, who composed our theme music, and the Jonah Levine Collective, which performs it.